Okay, I just got finished watching every single Beneil Dariush fight in the UFC. Although he just lost a decisive bout against the great Charles do Bronx Oliveira, it's clear that nobody, neither sympathizer nor hater, feel that Beneil is anything less than an elite, well-rounded fighter who deserves his spot in the top 5. He wrestles, he grapples, he boxes, he kicks, he's tough, and he's headstrong. Beneil Dariush is a full-bodied MMA fighter, and he's good at it, among the best in the entire game. But there's one aspect of Beneil Dariush that leaves many puzzled: his post-fight interviews. On May 16th, 2021, Beneil defeated fan favorite Tony Ferguson in a decision victory. After fights conclude, the UFC generally allows the victor a few precious moments on the mic to promote themselves and thank their teams. Although it's absolutely common for this time slot to be filled with heavenly platitudes, Beneil went a step further and blurted out this absolute masterpiece.
Marxist ideologies. There are millions of you, and I know it. And it's just a fight. I know it's not much, but I want you to know that I love you, and I understand the pain.
Now, unfortunately, many of you are sitting there scratching your heads going, wait, what's the issue? Marxism? That sucks. But, of course, for the rest of us, we hear this type of rhetoric all the time, and it does have an elementary retort. If Marxism is responsible for the deaths that Beneil ascribes to it, then surely we should tally up the deaths of capitalism as well, right? All of the people that die as a result of Western wars, imperialism, industrialization should absolutely be attributed to capitalism then. Capitalism is, by extension of Beneil's own logic, an abhorrent ideology, more so than Marxism. The flaw in Beneil's logic is that he's conflating government decisions with economic frameworks, but the interview continues. He shifts from anti-Marxism to, well, I'll just let him reveal it.
Joe, I want to call out your buddy, Elon Musk. Where's my wife's car, bro? I've been waiting 6 months. I've had the baby. I need a good car. I gotta protect my daughter. Let's go, Elon. Get me my car. Okay, let's talk about the fight.
Well, that's incredibly unfortunate. I don't think anybody saw that coming in the moment. Reddit did pop off on Beneil for this one, and admittedly, it was a seemingly pathetic request that was really just barely a notch above straight up begging. However, I've had some time to reflect on this one, and I feel as though there is a reasonable explanation for it. Beneil is not a guy concerned about his own ego or public perception. Understanding this, it seems as though he was simply sticking up for his wife. If she ordered the car a while ago and really wanted it and needed it, he could have felt like this was a valuable opportunity. If his wife was that important to him, using this critical time period to help improve her life could actually be kind of sweet.
And then I hear about Elon has replied to my call out, and he said something like, I think it was very sorry, coming soon or something like that, something along those lines. So I was like, oh my gosh, these people might be real. Yeah. So we called them back, and they're like, yeah, just come in and we'll get it all fixed up. I was like, that's it? Just come in? I've been calling you guys for months. It was never that simple.
Sure, his delivery was pretty cringe, but in hindsight, I can't really be mad about this one. I mean, he's just trying to do right by his wife, right? On July 16th, 2021, Beneil sits down with Candace Owens for an interview about his recent post-fight interview. Now, I've sat through this entire interview, and I've got to say, I'm not the biggest Candace Owens fan. To start off with, she plays his quote about Marxism and says it is, quote,
amazing, let's watch it.
Asked why he said it, Beneil implied he was defending Thug Rose Namajunas' recent comment of "Red is dead."
Thug Rose. I don't know if you were familiar with her. She came out. She just became champion again. She fought Wei Ling Zhang, and she came out and said, "Better dead than bread."
Beneil went on to say, quote, "You don't want this socialism. This is what destroys countries and lives. We need to start calling it Marxism. It's all one. You don't get to say, no, it's this, no, it's that," end quote. Candace then interrupts him and explains who Karl Marx is and some basics on Marxism.
You don't get to say, no, it's this. You don't get to say, it's all the same thing.
Right, I mean, Karl Marx wrote a book, and it's Marxist ideology. He was talking about taking a country that was capitalist, using socialism as a transitory state, and turning it into a communist state.
Why does she do this? Because even to her, it's clear that Beneil has no clue what Marxism actually is. Now, despite the back and forth, we actually do get a few important clues from this interview. The first clue was that Beneil was born in Iran as an Assyrian. And the second clue was that his wife is from Vietnam. On February 8th, 2022, Beneil was interviewed for a short-form documentary called From Savage to Servant. This is the first time where we really get to understand Beneil's childhood. He was born in Iran and left when he was 9 years old for America. He described it as a culture shock. Everything functioned different.
When I came to America, it was a complete culture shock. In Iran, I was in a village, most of the time outside, and I came to America and I was inside a lot, and just the way everything functioned was different.
Later in the interview, he revealed how he got into Christianity from his wrestling coach, of all people. He described attending church as uncomfortable and how he forced himself to stay and felt like the hypothetical sinner that the preacher was describing.
It was awkward for me while I was listening to the sermon. I was like, he's talking about these people, these so-called sinners, and I'm like, that's me. All the stupid things that I'm not supposed to do, I do. So it was really tough for me.
Over time, though, he developed a strong bond with the religion, boosted by the success of his own career. On October 22nd, 2022, Beneil Dariush defeated Mateusz Gamrot at UFC 280 and went on to have his most controversial post-fight interview yet. In front of an almost exclusively Muslim Abu Dhabi crowd, he said this.
Let me tell you one more thing. This might be the most important thing you'll ever hear. There is true freedom, a freedom that no one can take from you in the name of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Don't ever forget that. If you remember one thing I say, remember that.
People shout out their religions in these post-fight interviews all the time, but I feel like this one was different. This was a defiant stance. The way Beneil delivered those lines was exactly like that of somebody protesting something. I won't comment on whether it's disrespectful or not to do what he did or say what he said because I am neither a Christian nor a Muslim, so I do need your help on this one. If you are a Christian or you are a Muslim, let me know, is what Beneil said there disrespectful? Is it not disrespectful? Is it noble? Let me know what you think in the comments. Regardless, the idea that this interview was delivered like a protest is pretty interesting and makes me think that we should put a pin in this and maybe circle back. On October 28th, 2022, Beneil participated in another docu-style interview called My Crown is Jesus Christ. Unlike the first interview, this one was focused entirely on religion. This interview gives us the first look into the mechanics behind some of his viewpoints.
Even though I was born in Iran, I'm Assyrian. Assyrians are predominantly Christian, and they're typically either Orthodox, Catholic, or evangelical. So my father was Catholic, my mother was Orthodox, and I would say not so much my father, but my mom and my grandmas were devout.
There it is. He was born in Iran, a predominantly Muslim region, but is from an Assyrian family, a Christian ethnicity. He goes on to confirm that he wasn't particularly interested in religious culture early on in life. He describes his early life in Iran as not well off, but also not struggling, and describes the move to the US as a formative milestone in his life.
My family came to America when I was 9 years old. We weren't well off, but at the same time we were struggling. So my mom
took care of me. My parents split early on when we came here, and my mom took care of me, and she always took care of me. I was very spoiled in a lot of ways.
On February 27th, 2023, Beneil did another interview, and in this one, we get the best explanation yet for his comments at UFC 280.
If you deny me before other men, I'll deny you before my father. And I remember it just broke my heart, because that's what I did at that moment. And it broke my heart, and I said, never again. If the opportunity comes up, never again. So once I got back into Abu Dhabi, I knew I would. I wanted God to redeem me, and He did. He held my hand through it. Obviously, like you said, it's frightening, but He held my hand through it, and I'm still grateful to Him to this day.
Now, this clip is fascinating. It really shows us what was going on inside of his head at that time. Beneil implies that he felt like he joined the party a little late with regards to Christianity, and that he had squandered numerous opportunities. By doing a provocative shout-out to his religion on a hostile stage like the one in Abu Dhabi, it was kind of a way of redeeming himself in the eyes of his community and peers for joining at such a late stage of his life. After going through all of those interviews and taking down notes and trying to make observations about what he was thinking, one thing is crystal clear to me. Beneil is pretty misunderstood. I came into this not liking the guy. I'm going to be honest. I intended to have a different stance than the one I'm taking right now when I started this. Beneil is not right about everything. In fact, I personally feel he's off the mark on most of what he says, but with a clear mind, we can definitely analyze what he's saying and take away the truth. There's no beating around the bush. Both his conception of and attributions to Marxism are incredibly wrong, and he should consider learning a bit more about the works before bringing it up again. If you're watching this, Beneil, I suggest reading the Communist Manifesto with the same level of concentration you put into the Bible. The wild thing is that the essay doesn't even try to convert you into being a dirty commie. It literally describes how the rich having their boot on your neck has transcended industry and innovation. The reason we are so anti-Marxist in the US has nothing to do with the findings of Karl Marx and everything to do with the systematic stymieing of its spread on an academic level, thanks to fun little historical things like McCarthyism. It's not taught in schools. Whispers of it are shut down. Don't believe me? Ask an American to define socialism and come back to me. I'll wait. Let me know how that goes. Beneil's wildly inappropriate and misconceived comments about Marxism are, sadly, pretty par for course, given that the man spent most of his life in America. A lot of people draw connections to his origins in Iran and the various economic ideologies that impacted that area, but I think Occam's razor tells us the truth here. He's just uneducated and easily influenced on this topic specifically. Now, the whole thing about begging Elon for a car was, even though it was the juiciest of all these quotes and definitely his most widely mocked moment, it actually has a reasonable and, dare I say it, wholesome explanation. He just really loves his wife and doesn't care about his reputation, something that, well, maybe taking it a bit extreme, most people do care a little about their reputation. I can't help but admire that. It takes a humble man to do something like that for his wife, and hey, I think it's cool. Now, as for his spiral into Christianity and proselytization, well, Beneil's heritage combined with his disruptive formative years make him want to make up for lost time, and while I sit here a non-religious person and can't fathom the idea of what he's doing, I also comprehend it on a human level. He was robbed of an identity by the world and the times, and he's trying to claw that back. To summarize Beneil Dariush, the man is an excellent, if not elite fighter, even with his recent loss. He has no clue what Marxism is and really loves his wife. Most importantly, he was born as an Assyrian, a Christian people in the Middle East who were heavily persecuted for their faith. After coming to America, he developed his own religious motivations and became heavily involved in Christianity as well. One of the ways he felt he could redeem himself for his late participation was perhaps these cringy post-fight interviews. Beneil, buddy, we actually like you. You are a whole-ass dude. The universe robbed you of a normal childhood, a standard identity. You are, as you put it, a black sheep, and despite all of that, you've made something of yourself. The last thing a great man needs to do is compensate. I'm not religious, but if Jesus is who you say he is, then he will recognize and accept you, just as your fans have, without all the rhetoric.
They want to hear about the fight. It's awesome that you love Jesus. Love Jesus all you want. If you would just keep that stuff, talk about your fight. People don't want to be preached to.
Despite my best efforts to lampoon Beneil Dariush with good faith, honest research, you can't help but like the guy. If you want to see more content just like this, like and subscribe to the channel. That signals to me that you want to see more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
You gave a wonderful speech about Christianity and the principles that you follow to do your fights. So thank you so much for being here, for always recognizing that you're an Assyrian.
Oh, my pleasure. Not just, we have to recognize that families